Here's the thing, growth isn't always a good thing. Let's talk about some of the issues right now with growing Clark County. Hey, welcome back to the Living in Vancouver and Camas, Washington channel. I'm glad you're here today because we're talking about a really important subject, which is growth in Clark County, Washington, and some of the issues that I'm seeing with our growth. We know that growth is, to some extent, unstoppable. So this isn't something where we can just say, hey, no one else can come into Clark County, we're closed. That's not how it works in the United States. We have open borders between states. So if we expect people to move here, we need to be accommodating for them. But I know this is an issue across the country in many places beyond just Clark County, but there's some things I want to talk about and bring to your attention today. Before we talk about those issues, don't forget to sign up for Weekend Happenings with Hannah. We handwrite this email every single week for you guys, and we send out the best 3 to 5 local events happening in Clark County. We'd love for you to be a part of it. The information's down below. Clark County, just to give you a rough number too before we dive into these issues, is expecting, I believe, about 10,000 people a year to move into Clark County. So that's a lot. Like we have a lot of gaps to fill here. And that first gap that really is lacking, and this one's so obvious, is entry-level housing product. Entry-level housing product right now is so low. It is so much further below where it needs to be. When I think of entry-level housing product, I think of, smaller townhouses or entry-level size single-family homes, 1,500 square feet, 1,600 square feet. But when I look around, what I see being built is a lot of high-end apartment complexes, luxury apartment complexes, as we call them. We've had a lot of those come up the last 6 or 7 years, and rents are high on those, so that's not entry-level. And for new construction market's really tough right now. I give the builders and developers a lot of credit, but most of the product they roll out is in the 500s or even the 600s for single family homes. Townhouses in the 400s. And they're mostly bigger. There's definitely a lot of homes out there that are 1,700 square feet, but a lot of them are more like 2,000. And I don't think that a single person or even a couple needs 2,000 square feet. I think a lot of those folks would be happy with 1,200, 1,300 square feet, smaller homes at lower prices. But the code and the laws being passed in Washington, they just make it really hard for developers and builders to make those smaller products and still be profitable. And the builder has to be profitable, otherwise they can't be in business. So it's a whole big issue, but we definitely need to have more entry-level housing here in Clark County. The next issue I'm seeing with our growth is that compared to median incomes, our housing costs are really high. A nice, solid, decent home is these days in the mid 500s to maybe the mid 600s, just depending on where you're looking. Absolutely, you can still buy something under 500,000 these days, but you really can't buy anything under like 430,000 if we're talking single family. If we do the math on affordability there, I should have done the math ahead of time, sorry. We're at 7% interest rates still. Like, you need to be making, as a combined household, probably at least $100,000 for that to be comfortable, if not more. So that is really challenging, and I see a big disconnect there. A lot of folks are waiting for interest rates to go down, and we hope they do, but they're not gonna go back down to like 5. They might go back to 6 in the next 3 or 4 years, but it's a big challenge. Feeding into this problem, development costs are crazy these days, and the regulations are like off the charts. The code changes are off the charts. If you talk to developers and builders, they're up against so many challenges, and people in the public want to point their fingers at them. I know these people in the community. I know they want to provide affordable housing, but they can't just eat away at their profits every time that there's a code change, every time that there's a regulation change. They have to adapt, and ultimately the prices get passed on to the consumer. That's just the nature of the economy and how it works. We really need to loosen up those regulations if we want to create more affordable homes. With that, I'll also say that developers are taking on a lot of risk right now, and they deserve to have decent profits. Developers and builders, they're not going to stay in business if they make 1%, 2%, 5%. They're taking on way too much relative risk in order to make that little of a profit. Another issue I'm seeing with our growth right now is that with high costs, I'm seeing high rents for retail and commercial spaces. In practice, what this is doing is it's forcing out the small businesses, and that really scares me. I'll give you a prime example, and that is Ridgefield. Ridgefield has a whole bunch of new development coming, which is very exciting, and they have a big space that's getting developed just north of Pioneer Street, up where the new Costco is. We got In-N-Out coming, we got YMCA. That whole complex, almost everything in that complex is a national chain. I can't recall any local businesses really that are up there, and there's probably a few, but it's not more than 50%. It's maybe not even more than 30% of all of those spaces. The only folks who can pay those high rents for the retail and commercial spaces are gonna be the national chains that are raking in the money, right? Small businesses, I don't understand how they can pay rents of $7,000 to $15,000 or more a month. I just don't know. And they're not moving into the new spaces. So again, big challenge, and costs are passed on to the consumer at the end of the day. So the developers who develop those commercial and retail properties, if they're having to pay all of these fees, if they're having to pay all of these hookup fees and impact fees and follow all these regulations, their costs are higher, they're gonna have to pass it on to the rents at the end of the day. So hopefully we can lift some of those regulations. Another issue I'm seeing with our growth is that people don't like small lots, they like space. And our state, Washington State, is pushing like crazy to have smaller lots and more dense housing. Now, don't take this the wrong way and think that I'm saying we shouldn't have small lots and we shouldn't have dense housing options. I think we should have everything across the spectrum. Frankly, I love helping people with townhomes. I think they're an amazing product, but the family with 3 kids and 2 dogs and that has a whole bunch of hobbies and woodworks, they don't want to live in the townhouse. You know what I mean? They want to live on a 1/4 acre. But we don't have 1/4 acre lots anymore. Our state has done away with them. And so they're on the large end of the spectrum, larger lots, they're shrinking that. And so we're just going near down here, smaller lots closer together, closer setbacks, 8 feet from you to your neighbor if you're single family at a minimum. And I don't know, I think it's problematic. Developers and builders would be happy to provide larger lots if they were able to, but they're just not really able to right now. We can't talk about growth without talking about infrastructure. Infrastructure is always an issue for growing communities, and it's definitely an issue for Clark County. I think we're pretty decent, but my biggest gripe with the infrastructure is the projects take so long and they cost so damn much. My favorite example is the widening of SR 14 between 164th Avenue and 205. That was a small strip. It was 1.5 miles approximately, and it took them 2 full years. And according to the Department of Transportation website, it was a $28 million budget to widen the lane. 2 years. That's crazy. And I drive on that section pretty much every day. And so it's been great to have that extra space. Has it been worth it? I think so. But it did cause a lot of accidents when it was happening. It did cause a lot of backup. It ate up a lot of resources, 28 million. So it just feels like there's gotta be a more efficient way to do it. 2 years? Why did it take 2 years? So I can't imagine we have to do these bigger infrastructure projects. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I-5 Bridge obviously is on the top of everyone's mind. I made a video about I-5 Bridge if you wanna go check that out. That continues to be an evolving issue. How are we gonna complete that project? We took 2 years to make a lane that was 1.5 miles long. Do people realize how crazy and dire this is, that we're gonna replace a whole bridge? My mind is blown. So infrastructure, definitely an issue, and would be great to see some more efficiency in that department. All right, those are the main thoughts that were on my mind in terms of issues with growth right now in Clark County, Washington. I'm sure you guys feel like there are other issues, so feel free to drop them down below in the comments. Let us know what you think. And of course, if you need help selling or buying a home in Clark County, Vancouver, Camas, Washington, we'd really love to serve you at Dubyne Realty Group. So reach out to us. Our contact information is down below. You can email, text, or DM, and we can't wait to see you again soon. Bye.